Welcome to episode 27 of the AMT podcast. I hope you guys are having a good week as usual. It's been a very quiet one for me, which is to be expected the week after the Cheltenham Festival. The only time I really watched sport was this weekend for the golf and the boxing. Now, I've been very critical of boxing in my last few episodes, but there's nothing more refreshing than watching the two best guys, the number one and the number two in their respective division, actually step up and fight each other. And that's exactly what we got this weekend in the super middleweight division between Caleb Plant and David Benavidez. And what a cracking fight it was. Plant did his absolute best to fend off Benavidez with his speed, slick punching, his footwork and his lateral movement. But at the end of the day, if you don't have enough pop behind your punch, you're going to have a hard time fending off an offensive fighter like David Benavidez, who's just going to march you down and who's going to hurt you at the end of the day. And that's exactly what he did. Now, Benavidez has often been accused of being flat-footed and just using his size and strength to bully his opponents, but he's shown a marked improvement as a technical fighter in this fight, as he was really able to open up angles with his lateral movement and better footwork, and he hurt Plant a lot, and it really turned into a one-sided, violent, bloody assault in the second half as he just battered him around the ring. Could easily have been a knockout if it wasn't for the ref, Kenny Bayless, who did just a horrible job. I mean, he's such a veteran of the sport. I've seen him in so many big fights. But he looks like he's lost the plot. I mean, he made the fight all about him. Every clinch, he had just let them break up, wouldn't let them fight on the inside. He gave no warnings to Caleb. So it was just a horror show by the ref. But thankfully, it didn't take away from what was a cracking fight. And Caleb looks like he won quite a few fans because they were booing him on the way into the ring. But he's shown a lot of heart to come out of that fight and not get knocked out. So kudos to him. I'm a fan of both guys anyway. But the drum rolls are really going to be beating now for a Canelo versus Benavidez fight. Now, Canelo's been accused of ducking Benavidez. I don't think that's the case. He's just a guy who's got options. But with David, with that win over Caleb Plant, who Canelo's already beaten, there's going to be little wiggle room for Canelo if he does want to stick around at super middleweight. So we'll see what happens. I'm not going to be too hopeful, as you know, with boxing. But yeah, fingers crossed. The golf was a bit of a downer. It was the WGC match play event. And Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy actually both lost their semi-finals. And I mean that as no disrespect to the eventual winner, Sam Burns, who's a fantastic player. But I believe I speak on behalf of everyone that says they wanted to see Scottie versus Rory. Now, Rory beat him in the playoff round for third and fourth place. So he's probably going to have that one up on him in terms of confidence going into the Ryder Cup later this year. And more importantly, the Masters, which is in a couple weeks' time. So it's going to be poised for, I reckon, some great finishes between Scottie, who's going to be defending his title, and Rory, who came close last year, but we'll see. But when it comes to match play, I'm not really a fan of trading it. I much prefer stroke play events. So the PGA Tour was hosting another event in Punta Cana, which wasn't televised, which is a real shame, actually, because the guy that won, the Englishman, Matt Wallace, it was his first PGA Tour event, but coincidentally, me and him are members of the same club. We have the same home club in England. So my home club, in fact, has two European Tour players who are both ranked in the world's top 100. I don't know how many clubs can say they have that. Never mind England, but across Europe or even the world. And soon it's going to be 3 in the next couple of years with my buddy Owen, who's poised to make some big moves later in this year. I'm going to get him back on the podcast, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, back to trading. This week, like I said, it was a quiet one. Just going through my previous year's results that I've traded at the festival, and I'm well aware of how much the action really quietens down in the week following the Cheltenham Festival. Now, ordinarily, the liquidity last week wasn't really a problem. The main issue is making that adjustment going from £1,000 to £2,000 stakes all the way back down to £100 to £200. So that's kind of what I tend to struggle with. Usually takes me a little bit of time. And my results are testament to that because I've never had a good week right after Cheltenham. And last week was no different. So I traded Monday and Tuesday, which were both losing sessions. Nothing big. I lost around maybe £100 per session, so around £200 loss in total. £100 is around 1 to 2% of my typical bankroll. The only difference that this year, instead of flogging a dead horse, so to speak, I just decided to take the rest of the week off. The benefit of having detailed notes of your results at your disposal is that you can quickly pinpoint and identify where your weak spots are, instead of playing guessing games. That way you can take immediate action, and your turnaround period after a losing period is much quicker. So me, for example, if I have back-to-back losing sessions at the start of the week, it rarely ends well. Either I'll finish the week losing more money, or I'll have to do really well to break even. Now, £200 down is nothing to stress about. Like I said, it's only a couple of percent of my bankroll, but I have a huge personal problem in the past when it comes to over trading. So instead of trying to change previous results, I figured I'll just break the chains of past habits altogether and just stop trading, stop the bleeding, take the small loss, and just attack the big wins. So I didn't touch a single race for 3 days. I just unwinded and relaxed. I tried to play golf, but it was hammering down this week, so I just went to the range. Competition season is just around the corner, so just sharpening the tools. I went and ate out a few times, saw some friends, had some cigars, went for dinner, and probably spent a bit more frivolously than I ordinarily would. Because having done this for so long, knowing which way this week was likely going to head, after 2 back-to-back losing sessions, I figured, you know what, I'd rather spend that money that I'm almost inevitably going to lose on myself and do some things that I really enjoy, rather than just give that money back to the market. You know, life is short, and I do work hard, and I do have a habit of over trading. So instead of repeating old cycles, knowing where that road ends, I decided to just take the week off. And I have to admit, it felt super weird. I almost felt guilty spending money. I felt like I was completely wasting time. I'm so used to being in front of the screens 6 or even 7 days a week. I rarely have an entire day off. Given that I trade 3 sports, racing, golf, cricket, there's always at least one thing that I can look at on a daily basis. So for me to take an entire week off, let alone one day, is completely alien to me. And that's kind of how it felt last week, but that's to be expected when it comes to breaking patterns. Operating outside your comfort zone is a strange place to be. Whether it's a new gym routine or a new diet, or just stopping trading and taking days off in my case. But the longer you leave bad habits unchecked, the more stubborn and resistant you become towards change. In fact, people who've done things the wrong way for such a long time even start looking for reasons to justify their bad actions. And that's kind of the situation that I was heading in. I'd kind of convinced myself that I was wasting time if I wasn't trading, and I couldn't have been so wrong. This line of work isn't like running a business where the more hours you put in, the more sales you make, or working overtime at a 9 to 5 where the amount of hours you work are directly linked to how much you get paid. There's nothing linear about getting paid when it comes to trading. In fact, if anything, the more hours you work, the longer you spend in the market, and the longer you leave yourself exposed, the more likely you are to lose money. So I was kind of kidding myself into believing I was working hard, when actually I was just a slave to my bad habits. Betting on every single race, pre-race and in play, every golf tournament, every format of cricket. I was almost giving back as much as I was making. And it wasn't until I got to a point of complete exhaustion that I was prompted into tracking my results, going through what works and what doesn't. These days, I rarely, if ever, touch 2020 or one-day games and focus on just test cricket. Even with test cricket, I used to bet on every match, but now I have a strict criteria when it comes to match selection. Test cricket's a real marathon when it comes to concentration, as each game can last up to 40 hours. And when you're waking up through the early hours in the winter, it's even more difficult. Racing, like I said, I'd trade everything, UK and Australian on a daily basis, pre-race and in play. I was even betting on greyhounds. Now I trade only around 10-15 races per day. Australian racing just on Saturdays, and golf only on Sundays. There's no mindless sitting around betting on every market. I've now built a solid selection criteria, so I know in advance when I'm going to be at my desk, when I'm going to enter and exit the markets. As a consequence, I'm now making money for working less. And I say working quote unquote because on paper I'm spending less time in the market, but the reality is I just allocate my energy more efficiently now. I now spend the other hours that I used to spend mindlessly making and giving back money on race selection, understanding the courses, knowing when to get in, when to get out. Before I turned profitable, I used to trade everything. When I finally did turn profitable, the learning curve stopped for me. I felt like all I had to do was to just keep trading race after race till the end of the day, every day, in order to make good money. And it was that sort of laziness and arrogance that led to my frustration and exhaustion before I finally realized that this wasn't sustainable and there had to be another way. And that's when I realized that it takes hard work to turn profitable, but it takes smart work in order to level up. And that goes for anything. Now, I've always prided myself on having good mental stamina. I'm able to put in the donkey work. I'm not lazy in that regard, but I'm absolutely lazy when it comes to taking things to the next level. I get very comfortable, and though I'm ambitious and want to improve, I don't take the necessary steps till shit really hits the fan. It doesn't matter how hard you work. If you're not pulling the right levers, you'll never get the right results. And like I said, that goes for anything. I play golf to a reasonably high amateur level, but I know guys who literally play 10 times more than me, and they spend 10 times more than me on equipment and whatnot, yet they're not as good as me. Because just like trading, playing lots of golf is like trading lots of markets. Yes, it's necessary to improve, but if you're not working on the fundamentals of your swing, you're not going to improve your game. It doesn't matter how ambitious you are. The same thing goes for, getting fit, because many people go to the gym, but not everyone's in shape because not everyone's paying the same level of attention to their nutrition. Talent is an intangible asset. Whether it exists or not is up for debate, but it's often used as an excuse for as to why people don't hit their goals. I'm convinced that even the most average, able-bodied person can achieve a level of excellence in any endeavor if their commitment to improving matched their commitment to showing up. Everyone shows up. That's the first part. Everyone works hard, but not everyone pulls the right levers. Some people seem to achieve success right from the get-go, and it's very easy and convenient to chalk it up to luck or talent. But the truth is, they were shown the right way and they do the right thing. Now, some people are shown the right way from the beginning, and maybe that's luck, but most of us have to seek it by finding someone who knows how to do it better and learning from them. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, and there's only so many hours you can use. But there are millionaires out there, billionaires in fact, and many high-performance athletes who aren't necessarily working 100,000 times harder, but you can bet that they're working 100,000 times smarter. Hard work is just your first foot in the door. It's smart work that determines how far you will go. If I could do it all again, I would have spent far more time committing to improving as a trader, understanding race courses, understanding entries and exit points, what markets suit my style and which don't, rather than just working every day, making money and giving it back like a donkey. And it's that sort of laziness that led to my addiction, spending days on end without break, sitting in my underwear, watching every race, absolutely no appreciation for the cyclical nature of the markets, not resting properly, not freshening up, not creating a work environment that's conducive to optimal concentration, and then wondering why my efforts weren't translating to more profit. And I know it sounds crazy that I couldn't figure these things out, which seem like common sense now, but it's only when you break out of those habits and then you look back and you can see your old self in a more objective way. Hindsight is always 20/20. It's often hard to reflect on how or why you're doing something at the time, and that's why it's so important to surround yourself with people who are going to be honest with you. It wasn't until my relationships with people started suffering and becoming strained, and I was tired all the time and moody, that the close people around me said to me, look, we noticed that you're not being yourself and you're probably overdoing it. You're probably doing something wrong. And I was quite dismissive at the time, but it turns out they were right. And now I pay attention to the finer details and I'm more observant than ever. And I've become that way just by tracking my results. I journal any extraordinary bad days to find out what went wrong and what prompted me to do such a thing. And I spend my time more efficiently by learning things as opposed to just spinning my wheels for nothing. Anyone that's done this profession for long enough will be able to empathize with the fact that the eagerness and the excitement goes with time. Now, don't get me wrong, there's few other things in the world better than making money watching sports for a living. And for the first couple of years, you're willing to trade anything and everything, whatever hour of the day. But doing it for hours and hours every day, it just becomes a job and it gets tiring. And with the level of concentration that's required in order to turn a profit and not blow your bank up, you begin to appreciate the fact that the less time spent in the market, the better. Anyway, we'll wrap it up here for today. Hopefully I've given you guys some food for thought. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.